behind the perfectly polished royal smile and elegant wave lies a woman whose journey from a middle-class girl in Berkshire to future Queen of England is filled with secrets that would shock even the most devoted royal watchers. Catherine Middleton didn't just marry into the royal family, she revolutionized it from within, breaking centuries-old traditions and creating new rules that have left palace staff speechless. What you're about to discover isn't just another royal story. These are the hidden truths that palace insiders have whispered about for years, the moments that happened behind closed doors when the cameras weren't rolling, and the decisions that changed the monarchy forever. From secret midnight meetings that shaped royal protocol to a hidden talent that even Prince William didn't know about until years into their marriage, Catherine's real story is far more extraordinary than any fairy tale. The woman the world knows as the Princess of Wales has been quietly orchestrating changes that will impact the royal family for generations to come. She's broken rules, challenged traditions, and created entirely new ways of being royal, all while maintaining the grace and dignity the crown demands. But, perhaps most shocking of all is how she's been preparing for a role that was never originally meant to be hers, and the incredible sacrifices she's made along the way that nobody talks about. Get ready to see Princess Catherine in a completely new light. Because once you know these secrets, you'll never look at a royal engagement, a carefully crafted public appearance, or even a simple family photo the same way again. The rain was falling steadily on the cobblestones of St. Andrews University when Catherine Middleton made a decision that would change the course of British history forever. It was October 2001, and she was standing outside the dormitory where Prince William lived, holding a folder of art history notes she had borrowed from him weeks earlier. She could have easily returned them through a mutual friend, or waited until their next lecture. Instead, she chose to knock on his door personally, not knowing that this simple act of courtesy would set in motion events that would transform her from a commoner into one of the most influential women in the world. But Catherine's story doesn't really begin at university. It starts much earlier, in a modest semi-detached house in Reading, where Carol and Michael Middleton were building something extraordinary without even realizing it. Michael worked as a flight dispatcher for British Airways, while Carol was a flight attendant. They weren't wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, but they possessed something far more valuable, an unwavering belief that their children could achieve anything they set their minds to. When Catherine was born on January 9, 1982, at the Royal Berkshire Hospital, there were no photographers waiting outside, no announcements to the press, and certainly no indication that this baby girl would one day sit on the throne of England. Her parents had chosen her name simply because they liked it, not because it had any royal connections. In fact, the closest connection the Middleton family had to royalty at the time was Catherine's great-great-grandmother, who had once worked as a domestic servant in a manor house. The first secret that would amaze most people is how Catherine's mother, Carol, had been quietly preparing her daughter for greatness from the moment she could walk. While other parents were focused on getting their children through school and into decent jobs, Carol was instilling in Catherine a level of confidence and social grace that most aristocratic families would envy. She enrolled Catherine in dance classes, piano lessons, and, most importantly, drama club, not because she wanted her daughter to become an actress, but because she understood that confidence and the ability to speak publicly would be crucial skills in whatever path Catherine chose. Carol's background in the airline industry had given her unique insights into human behavior and social dynamics. She had spent years observing people from all walks of life, learning to read body language, understanding how to make people feel comfortable, and, most importantly, recognizing the subtle differences between genuine class and mere pretense. These observations became the foundation of an informal education she provided to Catherine and her siblings, lessons in grace under pressure that would prove invaluable years later. The second secret lies in Catherine's teenage years, specifically her time at Marlborough College. While the media has always portrayed this period as a seamless transition from ordinary schoolgirl to confident young woman, the reality was far more complex. Catherine struggled initially with the social dynamics of an elite boarding school where many of her classmates came from families with centuries-old wealth and connections. During her first year at Marlborough, Catherine experienced something that palace biographers rarely mention, a period of intense self-doubt that nearly broke her spirit. She was bullied by a group of girls who saw her as an outsider trying to fit into their world. They would hide her belongings, exclude her from social activities, and make cutting remarks about her family's middle-class background. For several months, Catherine begged her parents to let her transfer to a different school. Instead of simply moving Catherine to avoid the problem, Carol Middleton made a decision that revealed her remarkable understanding of her daughter's character. She told Catherine that she could transfer if she truly wanted to, but that running away from difficult people and situations would become a habit that would follow her for the rest of her life. She reminded Catherine that she had every right to be at Marlborough, that she was just as intelligent and capable as any of her classmates, and that the opinions of insecure teenagers said more about them than about her. This conversation became a turning point not just in Catherine's school experience, but in her entire approach to life. Rather than shrinking away from challenges, she began to face them head-on. She joined the hockey team, where her natural athleticism and competitive spirit earned respect from both teammates and opponents. She volunteered for school productions, where her poise and reliability made her invaluable to directors. Most importantly, she began to understand that true confidence comes not from being better than others, but from being authentic and comfortable with who you are. The third secret involves Catherine's gap year before university, a period that most people know very little about. While many of her peers were traveling through Europe or taking casual jobs, Catherine made a choice that would prove prophetic. She spent several months working with children in disadvantaged communities, an experience that awakened in her a deep understanding of social issues and a genuine empathy for people facing difficulties. During this time, Catherine worked with a program that provided educational support to children whose parents were struggling with poverty, addiction, or mental health issues. She saw firsthand how circumstances beyond their control could limit children's opportunities and dreams. But she also witnessed the incredible resilience of these young people and the transformative power of having just one adult who believed in them. One particular child, a 7-year-old named Emma whose mother was battling severe depression, became especially important to Catherine. Emma was incredibly bright but had stopped participating in class and had withdrawn from social activities. Catherine spent hours each week working with Emma, helping her with reading and math, but, more importantly, simply listening to her fears and concerns. Over the course of several months, Catherine watched Emma transform from a withdrawn, anxious child into a confident, curious student who was eager to learn and make friends. The experience taught Catherine that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone is simply show up consistently and demonstrate that they matter. This lesson would later influence her approach to royal duties and her focus on early childhood development. The fourth secret concerns Catherine's first encounter with Prince William, which happened several months before they officially met at St. Andrews. During her gap year, Catherine had attended a charity polo match where William was playing. She had gone with friends, never expecting to interact with any members of the royal family. However, when William's horse became spooked during a break in play, Catherine, who had grown up around horses thanks to her riding lessons, instinctively moved to help calm the animal. William was struck not just by her quick thinking and competence with horses, but by the fact that she seemed completely unimpressed by his royal status. While other spectators were keeping a respectful distance and whispering excitedly about the prince, Catherine simply focused on helping with the horse and then quietly returned to her friends. She didn't ask for a photo, didn't try to extend the conversation, and didn't even mention the encounter to her parents until weeks later. This brief interaction made such an impression on William that when he saw Catherine again at St. Andrews months later, he immediately remembered her. In fact, he later told friends that he had been hoping to encounter the confident, natural girl from the polo match again, though he hadn't known her name or how to find her. The fifth secret, which truly is incredible, involves Catherine's hidden artistic talent that even those closest to her didn't fully understand until years into her relationship with William. While everyone knew she was studying art history, Catherine had been quietly developing her skills as a photographer with a level of expertise that was truly professional. During her university years, Catherine had access to advanced photography equipment through the art department, and she spent countless hours learning not just the technical aspects of photography, but developing a sophisticated understanding of composition, lighting, and the ability to capture authentic human emotions. She would disappear for entire weekends, traveling to remote parts of Scotland with her camera, creating stunning landscape photographs that revealed an artist's eye for beauty and detail. But, more impressive than her landscape work was her portrait photography. Catherine had an uncanny ability to make people feel comfortable in front of the camera, allowing her to capture images that revealed something true and beautiful about her subjects. She photographed everyone from fellow students to local shopkeepers, building an impressive portfolio that her professors considered worthy of professional exhibition. William first discovered the extent of Catherine's photographic talent during a weekend trip to the Scottish Highlands in their third year of university. Catherine had brought her camera equipment, ostensibly to photograph the scenery. However, when she began taking portraits of William and their friends, everyone was amazed by both her technical skill and her ability to capture genuine, unguarded moments. The photographs Catherine took that weekend were so exceptional that William's protection officers, who were required to review any images taken of the prince, were initially skeptical that an amateur photographer could produce such professional quality work. When they learned that Catherine had indeed taken the photographs, it added another layer to William's growing appreciation of her talents and independence. This photographic skill would later prove invaluable in Catherine's royal role, as she became known for taking the official family photographs that the palace releases to the public. Her understanding of lighting, composition, and how to work with children has resulted in some of the most beloved images of the younger generation of royals. The sixth secret involves a conversation between Catherine and her mother that took place the night before her university graduation. By this time, Catherine's relationship with William had become serious, and media attention was beginning to intensify. Carol Middleton, with her characteristic directness, asked Catherine a question that no one else had dared to pose: "Are you prepared for the possibility that this relationship might not lead to marriage, and that you might spend years of your life in the public eye for nothing?" Catherine's response revealed the depth of her maturity and the strength of her character. She told her mother that she had fallen in love with William as a person, not as a prince. She acknowledged that the relationship might not work out, but that she couldn't make decisions about her life based on fear of potential disappointment. Most importantly, she said that even if the relationship ended, she believed the experience of being with William had already made her a stronger, more confident person. This conversation established a pattern that would continue throughout Catherine's relationship with William: her refusal to be defined entirely by her royal connections and her insistence on maintaining her own identity and independence. Even as their relationship deepened, Catherine continued to pursue her own interests and career goals, working for her family's business and maintaining friendships that had nothing to do with royal circles. As Catherine walked across the stage to receive her degree from St. Andrews University, she had no way of knowing that she was taking the first step toward becoming one of the most photographed women in the world. She couldn't predict that every outfit choice, every public appearance, and every gesture would be analyzed by millions of people. She had no idea that she would one day be responsible for modernizing centuries-old traditions and helping to secure the future of the British monarchy. But, perhaps most importantly, she couldn't have imagined that the shy, uncertain girl who had once been bullied at boarding school would grow into a woman capable of standing confidently beside the future King of England while remaining true to the values and principles her parents had instilled in her from the very beginning. The morning of April 29, 2011, dawned crisp and clear in London, but inside Clarence's house, Catherine Middleton was experiencing a moment of quiet panic that no one in the media ever knew about. As she sat in her silk robe, surrounded by hairstylists, makeup artists, and wedding planners, she suddenly asked everyone to leave the room. What happened next would become one of the most closely guarded secrets of the royal wedding. Catherine stood alone in front of the mirror and had what she later described to close friends as a moment of complete clarity about the magnitude of what she was about to undertake. She wasn't just getting married, she was agreeing to spend the rest of her life in service to the British people, to surrender many of the freedoms that most women take for granted, and to raise her children in the full glare of public scrutiny. For about 10 minutes, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of that responsibility. Then, she did something that perfectly captured who Catherine Middleton truly was beneath all the pomp and ceremony. She picked up her phone and called her father, Michael Middleton, who was getting ready in another part of the building. She didn't ask for reassurance or express doubts about marrying William. Instead, she thanked him for raising her to be strong enough to handle whatever lay ahead, and she told him that no matter what title she might gain, she would always be proud to be a Middleton first. This conversation revealed the seventh secret about Catherine: her absolute determination to honor her family's middle-class values even as she joined the most exclusive family in Britain. Throughout her years as a girlfriend to Prince William, Catherine had watched how other royal girlfriends and wives had been gradually absorbed into royal life, losing touch with their former selves and the people who had shaped them. She was determined that this would not happen to her. The eighth secret becomes apparent when examining Catherine's first year as a married royal, a period that palace insiders now acknowledge was far more challenging than anyone publicly admitted. While the media portrayed her early royal engagements as seamless transitions into public life, Catherine was actually struggling with severe anxiety that sometimes left her physically ill before public appearances. The root of this anxiety wasn't fear of crowds or media attention. Catherine had already proven she could handle those pressures. Instead, she was grappling with the realization that everything she said and did now carried weight beyond her individual intentions. A casual comment about liking a particular shop could lead to chaos as crowds descended on the establishment. An offhand remark about enjoying a book could cause it to sell out nationwide. Catherine found herself analyzing every word before she spoke, second-guessing every gesture, and losing the natural spontaneity that had always been part of her charm. The turning point came during a visit to a children's hospital in Manchester, about 6 months after her wedding. Catherine was scheduled to spend time with young patients, but her anxiety was so severe that morning that she had asked palace staff if the visit could be postponed. Her private secretary, Rebecca Deacon, made a decision that would prove transformative. Instead of rescheduling, she suggested that Catherine spend a few minutes before the official visit simply talking with one of the child life specialists about the patient's conditions and needs. During that conversation, Catherine learned about 8-year-old James, who had been hospitalized for months with a rare blood disorder. James was an aspiring photographer who had been using a simple digital camera to document his treatment journey. When Catherine heard about his passion for photography, she forgot entirely about her anxiety and asked if she could see his work. James's photographs were remarkable, not technically perfect, but filled with genuine emotion and an unusual perspective on hospital life. Catherine spent nearly an hour with James, discussing composition and lighting, sharing some of her own photographic experiences, and encouraging him to continue developing his skills. By the time she moved on to the official part of her visit, Catherine had remembered why she was really there, not to be perfect or to avoid making mistakes, but to connect with people and, hopefully, make their day a little brighter. This experience taught Catherine that her anxiety disappeared when she focused on the people she was meeting rather than on how she was being perceived. From that day forward, she began approaching royal engagements differently, spending more time in preparation learning about the people and causes she would encounter, and less time worrying about potential protocol mistakes. The ninth secret involves Catherine's relationship with Queen Elizabeth II, which was far more complex and significant than most people realize. While media coverage often focused on surface-level interactions between the Queen and her granddaughter-in-law, the reality was that Elizabeth II was quietly mentoring Catherine in ways that had never been done for previous royal newcomers. The Queen had observed Catherine during her long courtship with William and had been impressed by her discretion, her loyalty to William during difficult periods, and her genuine lack of interest in seeking attention for herself. However, Elizabeth II also recognized that Catherine's middle-class background, while refreshing, meant she would need guidance in understanding the subtle complexities of royal life that went far beyond public appearances and protocol. Beginning about a year after Catherine's wedding, the Queen began inviting her for private tea sessions at Buckingham Palace, meetings that were never included in the court circular and were kept strictly confidential. During these sessions, Elizabeth II shared insights that could only come from decades of experience as a monarch. She explained how seemingly minor decisions could have major political implications, how to navigate the complex relationships between different Commonwealth countries, and how to maintain dignity and effectiveness even when dealing with difficult people or situations. More importantly, the Queen shared personal stories about the sacrifices and rewards of royal life, helping Catherine understand that feeling occasionally overwhelmed or uncertain was normal, even for someone who had been doing the job for decades. These conversations created a bond between the two women that went far beyond formal royal relationships, and Catherine later credited the Queen with helping her develop the confidence to trust her own instincts while respecting royal traditions. The 10th secret, which might be the most incredible of all, involves Catherine's role in modernizing royal communications and her hidden influence on major palace decisions. While the public saw her as a gracious and supportive royal wife, behind the scenes Catherine was actually revolutionizing how the royal family engaged with the public and handled modern media challenges. Catherine's background in art and her sophisticated understanding of visual communication gave her insights that traditional palace advisors lacked. She recognized that in the age of social media and instant global communication, the royal family needed to think differently about how they presented themselves and their work. Rather than simply following established protocols, Catherine began suggesting ways to make royal engagements more meaningful and authentic. Her influence became particularly apparent during the planning for Prince George's christening. Traditional royal christenings were formal affairs with official photographers and limited public access to images. Catherine proposed a different approach. She would take the official photographs herself, creating more intimate and natural images that would show the royal family as real people rather than distant figures. The idea was initially met with skepticism from palace staff who worried about the technical quality and appropriateness of having unofficial photographers handle such an important royal event. However, Catherine's persistence and her willingness to demonstrate her photographic skills eventually won over the doubters. The resulting images were so successful that they established a new precedent for royal photography. Catherine's influence extended beyond photography to broader questions of royal communication strategy. She was instrumental in developing the approach that allowed the palace to share more personal moments while still maintaining appropriate boundaries. Her understanding of how modern audiences responded to authenticity versus formality helped reshape everything from the tone of official statements to the types of activities included in royal tours. During William and Catherine's 2016 tour of India and Bhutan, Catherine's input was evident in every aspect of the planning. Rather than focusing solely on traditional diplomatic meetings and formal ceremonies, the tour included visits to cricket matches, mountain hiking, and interactions with local children that allowed the couple's genuine personalities to shine through. The resulting media coverage was overwhelmingly positive and helped strengthen Britain's relationships with both countries. Perhaps most significantly, Catherine played a crucial role in developing the strategy for announcing and handling her pregnancies, particularly with Prince George. Traditional protocol called for pregnancy announcements to be made through formal palace statements, with minimal personal details shared until after the birth. Catherine advocated for a more open approach that would satisfy public interest while still protecting her family's privacy. Her suggestion was to acknowledge the pregnancies early, share appropriate updates about her health and activities, and then provide carefully chosen personal details that would help the public feel connected to the growing royal family without compromising their security or privacy. This approach was so successful that it became the template for all subsequent royal pregnancy announcements. Catherine's hidden influence also extended to decisions about her children's education and upbringing. While these choices were ultimately made jointly with William, Catherine's middle-class background and her parents' emphasis on normalcy and independence were clearly reflected in decisions to send the children to nursery school, to allow them to participate in ordinary childhood activities, and to ensure they had regular contact with their Middleton grandparents. The success of this approach became evident in the children's natural behavior during public appearances. Unlike previous generations of royal children who often appeared stiff and uncomfortable in public, George, Charlotte, and Louis displayed the kind of authentic childhood spontaneity that endeared them to people around the world. As Catherine entered her second decade as a member of the royal family, her transformation from middle-class commoner to confident royal leader was complete. She had not only adapted to royal life but had actively shaped it, bringing fresh perspectives and modern sensibilities while maintaining respect for tradition and protocol. The young woman who had once stood nervously outside Prince William's university dormitory had become someone capable of advising the monarchy on complex strategic decisions, someone whose opinions were sought and respected by senior palace officials, and someone who had successfully modernized royal traditions without abandoning their essential meaning. But, perhaps most remarkably, Catherine had managed to do all of this while remaining recognizably herself, still the same person who valued family, authenticity, and genuine human connection above all else. The girl from Berkshire had become the Princess of Wales, but she had never forgotten where she came from or the values that had made her who she was. The phone call that changed everything came at 2:30 in the morning on September 8, 2022. Catherine was awakened by the distinctive ring that palace staff used for urgent communications, and she immediately knew that Queen Elizabeth II's long and remarkable reign was coming to an end. As she and William dressed hurriedly to travel to Balmoral Castle, Catherine realized that within hours, she would no longer be the Duchess of Cambridge but the Princess of Wales, a title that carried with it centuries of history, expectation, and responsibility. But, even as she grappled with the magnitude of this transition, Catherine was already thinking about the children. George, Charlotte, and Louis were at school, going through what should have been an ordinary day, unaware that their great-grandmother was dying and that their lives were about to change in ways they couldn't possibly understand. Catherine's first instinct wasn't about protocol or public appearances, it was about how to protect her children while helping them process one of the most significant losses they would ever experience. This moment revealed what might be considered the final secret about Catherine, her extraordinary ability to balance the competing demands of being a mother and being a future queen. Throughout her years in the royal family, Catherine had consistently demonstrated that her children's well-being came first, even when this created complications for royal schedules or public expectations. The decision to keep the children in school that day, rather than bringing them immediately to Balmoral, was Catherine's. She understood that George, as the second in line to the throne, would spend his entire life dealing with the formal aspects of royal death and succession. She wanted to give all three children a few more hours of normal childhood before that reality set in permanently. When Catherine did finally sit down with the children that evening to tell them about their great-grandmother's death, she had prepared not just explanations appropriate for their different ages, but also plans for how to help them process their grief while managing the public attention that would inevitably follow. She had arranged for the children's favorite teachers to be available for extra support, had coordinated with palace staff to ensure their school routines could continue as normally as possible, and had even packed special comfort items for each child in case they needed to stay at palace properties during the period of official mourning. The days following the Queen's death revealed Catherine's remarkable growth as both a royal figure and a leader within her family. While William was dealing with the immediate constitutional implications of his new role as heir to the throne, Catherine was managing the complex logistics of helping three young children participate appropriately in historic events while protecting them from becoming overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening around them. Her handling of the Queen's funeral demonstrated the full extent of Catherine's transformation from nervous royal newcomer to confident princess. She had insisted on walking with Charlotte, holding her hand during the most solemn moments, ensuring that her daughter felt supported throughout the ceremony. At the same time, she was providing subtle guidance to George about royal protocol, helping him understand when to bow, when to stand, and how to comport himself during the most important state occasion of his young life. But it was Catherine's interaction with Louis during the funeral that perhaps best captured who she had become. At 4 years old, Louis was struggling with the length and formality of the ceremony. Rather than allowing palace staff to remove him, Catherine made a series of quiet gestures, a gentle hand on his shoulder, a whispered explanation of what was happening, a small smile of encouragement that helped him remain present for this crucial family and national moment. These were not the actions of someone simply following royal protocol. They were the choices of a mother who understood that her children's emotional well-being was more important than perfect adherence to formal expectations, and of a future queen who recognized that showing authentic family love during moments of grief would resonate more deeply with the public than maintaining rigid formality. Catherine's first months as Princess of Wales revealed the full scope of her preparation for this role. Long before Queen Elizabeth's death, Catherine had been quietly studying the life and legacy of Diana, Princess of Wales, understanding both the opportunities and the challenges that came with holding this particular title. She had also been working with historians and palace advisors to understand the broader history of the position and how she might honor that legacy while establishing her own distinctive approach. The depth of Catherine's preparation became evident in her first major speech as Princess of Wales, delivered at a conference on early childhood development just 3 months after the Queen's death. Rather than offering generic platitudes about the importance of children, Catherine presented detailed research findings, specific policy recommendations, and concrete plans for how the royal family could support early childhood initiatives in meaningful ways. Her speech demonstrated not only her intellectual engagement with the issues but also her understanding of how royal influence could be leveraged to create actual change rather than simply raising awareness. Catherine had spent years building relationships with researchers, practitioners, and policymakers in the field of child development, and she was now ready to use her elevated platform to advance real solutions to complex social problems. The reaction to Catherine's speech from experts in early childhood development was overwhelmingly positive, with many commenting that her level of knowledge and sophistication exceeded that of many professional colleagues in the field. This response validated Catherine's long-term strategy of developing genuine expertise rather than simply lending her name to various causes. Catherine's approach to being Princess of Wales also reflected her deep understanding of how much the monarchy had changed since Diana's death in 1997. The world was more connected, more informal, and more skeptical of traditional authority. Catherine recognized that she could not simply copy Diana's approach, no matter how successful it had been in its time. Instead, she needed to find ways to honor Diana's legacy while addressing the expectations and challenges of a completely different era. Her solution was to focus on authenticity and substance rather than glamour and symbolism. While Diana had been a master of using her personal charm and emotional intelligence to draw attention to important causes, Catherine chose to develop deep expertise and long-term commitment to a smaller number of issues. Rather than being associated with dozens of different charities and causes, Catherine focused intensively on early childhood development, mental health, and the arts. This approach required patience and discipline that not everyone understood or appreciated. Critics sometimes complained that Catherine was too cautious, too focused on research and preparation rather than immediate action. But Catherine understood that in the modern media environment, any mistakes or missteps would be amplified and could undermine her ability to be effective in the long term. Her patience was vindicated when her early childhood work began producing measurable results. The research she had supported led to new government policies supporting family welfare. The programs she had highlighted received increased funding and expanded to serve more communities. The experts she had promoted gained greater influence in shaping national approaches to child development. Perhaps most importantly, Catherine's work was changing how people thought about early childhood development from something that was primarily the responsibility of individual families to something that required coordinated social support and investment. This shift in perspective had implications far beyond any single program or policy. It represented a fundamental change in how society approached one of its most important responsibilities. Catherine's influence on her children's upbringing continued to reflect her determination to prepare them for royal life while allowing them to develop as individuals. George's education, in particular, required careful balancing of his needs as a future king with his development as a normal child. Catherine's decision to send him to Lambrook School, rather than one of the more traditional royal schools, reflected her belief that he would benefit from a more diverse, less formal environment during his primary school years. Her handling of the children's public appearances also demonstrated her sophisticated understanding of media and public relations. Rather than trying to shield them completely from public attention, Catherine created carefully managed opportunities for the children to appear in public in contexts that felt natural and appropriate. The family's annual Christmas card photos, their appearances at sporting events, and their participation in special royal occasions all followed a pattern that allowed the public to feel connected to the children while respecting their privacy and development. The success of this approach became evident in the overwhelmingly positive public response to the children's behavior and personalities. Unlike previous generations of royal children who often seemed uncomfortable or artificial in public settings, George, Charlotte, and Louis appeared relaxed and genuine, displaying the kind of natural confidence and kindness that suggested they were being raised with both love and appropriate preparation for their unusual futures. As Catherine settled into her role as Princess of Wales, it became clear that her long journey from middle-class commoner to future queen had been successful beyond anyone's expectations. She had not only adapted to royal life but had actively improved it, bringing modern sensibilities and authentic humanity while maintaining respect for tradition and protocol. The shy girl who had once worried about fitting in at boarding school had become a confident leader who was reshaping one of the world's oldest institutions. The young woman who had experienced panic attacks during her first royal engagements had developed into someone capable of representing the monarchy on the world stage with grace and effectiveness. But, perhaps most remarkably, Catherine had achieved all of this while remaining true to the values her parents had instilled in her from the beginning: the importance of hard work, the value of authentic relationships, and the belief that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. As she looked toward the future, Catherine understood that her greatest challenges lay ahead. One day, she would be Queen of England, responsible not just for supporting her husband but for embodying the values and aspirations of an entire nation. The little girl from Berkshire who had once dreamed of ordinary things had accepted the extraordinary responsibility of helping to guide the monarchy through whatever changes and challenges the future might bring. The 10 secrets that had shaped Catherine's journey from commoner to princess had prepared her for this moment. Her parents' unwavering support, her determination to overcome early challenges, her hidden talents and capabilities, her authentic love story with William, her careful preparation for royal life, her dedication to meaningful causes, and her commitment to raising her children with both love and appropriate preparation for their unique destinies. All of these elements had combined to create someone uniquely qualified for the role she had accepted. The woman who would one day be Queen Catherine had proven that sometimes the most powerful transformations happen not through dramatic gestures or sudden changes, but through consistent growth, authentic commitment, and the courage to remain true to yourself even when everything around you is changing. In a world that often valued appearance over substance and celebrity over service, Catherine had chosen a different path, one that honored both tradition and progress, both duty and humanity. Her story was far from over, but the foundation had been built, and it was stronger than anyone could have imagined when that shy young woman first knocked on Prince William's university door more than 20 years ago.